So this video is going to help you to understand the links that are in your press release report, so that above all you know that these are legitimate placements that we are securing for you on the various media outlets. And so I'm going to explain to you today how these links that are found in this section of your press release report, these are the links that are where your press release is located on the main website of whatever publication. So the first thing to understand is that press releases are delivered to newspapers in different methods. Sometimes it's direct, and if it's not direct, then it's through a newswire service that will end up picking up the story and publishing it to a lot of outlets at once. So if you do a search for your press release on a website and you can't find it, it means the reason is because it was picked up by a newswire service and they have published to that website, and because of duplicate content laws that are established by Google, the search engines will not allow for duplicate content, so you will not be able to find your press release if you search on the main website, if your press release has in fact been picked up by a newswire. So that is something to understand right from the beginning, is that newswires have their own unique way of delivering press releases to all of these different websites, and I'm going to show you how they do that using the Boston Globe as an example. So you see here there are two links, one to the homepage, one to the press release. Now, when you click on the homepage, you will come to this site, boston.com. And this is the main site of boston.com, all the links. Typically now, one thing to understand is that press releases are often placed within the business section of a newspaper. And this is the section where they allow for daily press releases to be published. I explained that there are two ways for press releases to be distributed to a newspaper. If it's not direct by that particular press releases or that newspaper's editors, then that press release will be distributed to a newspaper outlet through a newswire agency. Now, all newspapers have them. All major newspapers use them. Newswires are a very, very industry standard way of delivering content to the daily papers. So in this particular instance, we know that our press release for our client was picked up by one of the major newswires. And one way that they use to distribute their press releases through their different newspapers that they distribute to is through links like this, ads, or widgets like this. In this particular case, they've used a stock market widget. So it's very much like a Twitter widget. When someone, these are all live feeds of what the stock market, what stocks are trading at. So if someone goes to click on that to get stock updates, or if they enter in a symbol, they click on this, it's going to bring them to this page, which eventually is the markets page. So you can see here that this will take you to top market news. Here you see business. We're on the markets page, and in particular we're on markets overview. Now if we click on market news here, you can see this URL, finance.boston.com. That's the URL that your press release will have. Here you see this is where your press release is, and you see that URL, finance.boston.com. So getting back to this page, now we landed in all the different markets, like I said, whether it's digital, health, entertainment, all of the company news is listed here. So from here we are going to want to click on market news. That gives us kind of like a recap of all of the business news in one central place. So when we click on market news, it takes us to this page. You can see finance.boston.com/Boston/markets/news. This is where there's an overcap of all of the press releases that they have picked up for that particular day. You can see on the left-hand side, literally this is the section for press releases, and you can see there's at least 20 different news wires that are submitting and that have distributed content press releases to the Boston.com. So here's all the news wires that this particular newspaper, Boston.com, uses. In this case, we know that our client's story was picked up by SB Wire. So when we click on this link, SB Wire, it brings us up to an overview of all of the press releases that Boston.com has picked up and published by SB Wire. You can see that there's literally hundreds of news stories throughout that are available going back to God knows when. So we know that our story first appeared around the end of March. So we'll click on, let's say, page 5, since these are mid-April dates. When we click on page 5, you can see we're here, page 5. It brings us to press release stories. There we go, that match our date. So, and then as we scroll down, we see our client's news release. We click on it, and it brings us here. So you can see the direct path from Boston.com to our client's news story, that it is a legitimate link and legitimate content that is found on Boston.com, delivered through a third-party newswire service that places that content throughout the site in different subsections of that site. So tracing it back, we go to the business section of Boston.com. Through the business section, we see this markets widget. Whether we click on this or the markets widget, it takes us to the same page, which is the markets page right here. You can see the URL has now become a sub-URL of Boston.com, finance.boston.com. And just so you understand, sub-URLs are other pages of content that are available within the mainframe navigation of the website. Which brings us here, which shows us all of the news wires that have had content, press releases, published on Boston.com. And you can see there's, well, about 20 of them. Here's all the press releases. So when we click on SB Wire, which is one of the news wires that picked up our story, it brings us to all the SB Wire press releases. When we scroll through to find our particular client, we find it right here. And when we click on it, it brings us here to this URL, finance.boston.com, which is all part of the content that is found on Boston.com. Now, one thing to remember about newswire services is that it's industry standard for all of the major newspapers to rely on them for content that their own staff does not have any expertise or any resources in. So it'll gather content from all around the world and distribute it to that particular newspaper. They do it in different ways. Like I said, sometimes it's through links, sometimes it's through ads. As we saw in our case, it was through a widget that we found right here in the markets section. There's a widget, plus it had the markets link. So when content is picked up, when a news story is picked up by a third-party agency, a newswire agency, you will not be able to find your press release indexed on their main site. And this is why if you type in the title of your press release within their search function, it's not going to bring it up because of the fact that it was picked up and indexed already by that newswire. And there's something called duplicate content that goes against Google's and all of the major search engines rules. They do not allow for duplicate content. So if that newswire picks up your story first, they're going to be the first ones to index it. And then they will put a tag code in it that lets the search engines know the same story should not be getting indexed hundreds of different times. It should get indexed by the main referrals of that story. In this case, it was the newswire. You can read up on duplicate content guidelines. You can Google it on Google and find plenty of articles that will explain it. But that is the main reason why press releases that are distributed by a newswire will not be indexed by that particular newspaper's site search function here.